Well, hello there and welcome to the recording of episode 9 of Search Marketing Scoop, the podcast brought to you by Semrush. So this is just an informal hi before we start the proper recording of the podcast, which can be found, of course, on iTunes or your favorite Android podcatcher. So if you fancy listening to the previous episodes, you can catch them over at searchmarketingscoop.com. Follow the links there and you'll find the podcast links to take you to whatever flavor of podcaster is your preference. But of course, if you're watching us here live on YouTube, making the recording, say hi. It would be good to hear from you. So what's your name? Where are you from in the world? And perhaps what SEO or paid search challenges, questions do you happen to have at the moment? If you fill them in the chat, then we will try, of course, to incorporate them as part of the live discussion. We've got a couple of great chaps that are joining me as guests. I will introduce them properly just in a second once we get the show going as proper. But before then, if you could possibly say where in the world that you happen to be watching and any SEO or paid search topics that are of particular interest to you at the moment, that would be cracking. It would be good just to get a little bit of interaction in the chat. We're not necessarily going to get loads of people in the chat because obviously a lot of people end up listening to this as an audio podcast. We've got Matthew Campbell saying howdy. Howdy, Matthew. Where in the world are you from? Hopefully you can hear us all well and you're looking forward to the show itself. Have you actually heard any previous episode at all? We have got Brian Mueller watching from St. Louis in the States. We've got, Matthew says he's from Las Vegas. We've also got Peter Collins over from Cheshire in the UK. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for participating. It would be good just to hear your thoughts on what's being said all the way through the discussions. We're going to have a lively chat, I'm sure, about paid search, but specifically this week, we're focusing a little bit on LinkedIn advertising as a paid search format. And of course, SEO as usual as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start the proper show introduction, and that will be, of course, the audio podcast start. So let's get going with that. And that's a little bit of bonus the last couple of minutes, of course, for you live viewers. Those audio listeners won't get that at all. So let's get going with the proper introduction. Google releases Lighthouse version 3.0. Bing ads are going to allow advertisers to target LinkedIn audiences. Google's reliance on Wikipedia makes it vulnerable to search pranks. And while Google has axed political ads in Washington state, LinkedIn does it globally. Broadcasting live on the Semrush YouTube channel, this is Search Marketing Scoop, the Semrush show that brings together the top PPC and SEO folk to discuss the current search headlines and how they impact you. I am your host, David Bain. Let us meet today's guests. So first up, an 18-year SEO veteran. He is a UK-based freelance SEO consultant. Welcome to the Scoop, Andy Drinkwater.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you on here, Andy. And next up, a LinkedIn advertising evangelist. He has been a speaker at many top digital marketing events, including Social Media Advertising World and HeroConf. Welcome, AJ Wilcox.
Thanks, glad to be here.
Thank you, AJ. Well, let us go back to Andy for story number 1, and that is, do Google have an over-reliance on Wikipedia? So somebody recently updated the California Republican ideology to Nazism, and that made it all the way to Google's knowledge panel. I think AJ was wondering whether I was going to say that or not. So, but the real issue here is, I think, is how easy is it to game the system, and should Google have more sources of knowledge panel data? So, Andy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yes. Well, first and foremost, yeah. I mean, I think everybody's sort of seen what's going on with Wikipedia, and like I said, the recent changes, like I say, did make it into the into various news sources as well. Wikipedia make it very, very straightforward and very simple for anybody to make a change to a page, and there seems to be a lot of people do it for fun. Some will do it for a little bit of satire, a little bit of comedy. Others will do it just to see what they can actually get away with. Businesses will try and sort of put content into pages. You're never quite sure what's going in there. And although there's an absolute army of editors, things get missed. They're human at the end of the day. You can't always rely on what's actually being put in there is going to be correct at the time you actually see it. If somebody puts something in, if it gets missed, if somebody overlooks it, if maybe a citation's incorrect or something like that, then yeah, absolutely, it's an over reliance that is a bit of an issue. I mean, we did have the Wiki Tribune, which is something that I know gets used. I don't know to what degree, where they're trying to sort of bring a little bit more control into the content that gets seen, and the journalists can sort of be involved with a little bit more. How used that is, I'm not entirely sure, but I know that they're trying to make some headway with it as well. But it is an issue, and one that's going to be difficult for them to police.
So are SEOs or many SEOs actively using Wikipedia as part of their strategy, or is it just something that people are updating as a hobby and it's not something that SEOs are generally paying that much attention to?
I think people will try and make a change to a page or try and get something in there because as a citation, as a piece of content that's within an article. All right, they're all no follow links, but some of these pages are heavily visited. And if you can get a mention, if you can get an external link on there, then it's worthwhile. But you'll find that most will try and sort of get the link on there. If it gets booted off, chances are they're not going to go back again. They're doing it completely wrong. They're just basically editing a page, hoping it sticks. And 99% of the time, that's not going to work. The odd times it does work, chances are someone's going to come up and sort of point it out at some point as well.
So getting an external link on there, even though it's no follow, is there authority building value to that? Are you just talking about it from a traffic perspective?
In a roundabout way, there's always authority value to any links, really, especially ones that you get from Wikipedia. Google say that no, we don't take any notice of sort of no follow links, or people say Google take no notice. But to what point would you say? I said, well, okay, well, maybe it makes a difference to the traffic that comes through to the website. So in a roundabout way, it's going to make a difference in terms of keeping a very natural looking link profile. Then you're going to want a mix of links. You don't want just a sea of do follow links coming through, because it's just going to look unnatural. If you're lucky enough to get a Wikipedia link that sticks from a page that's targeted, then you can actually get some good traffic from it as well. So it is worthwhile trying to do it properly.
Great. Okay. We've got a lot of interaction here going on in YouTube chat, and that's great to see. So if you're watching on YouTube, say hi in the chat, and also share any SEO or paid search questions that you may have. Add any comments that you have in relation to the chat. If you're listening to this, of course, as the audio podcast, then come back and watch the next show being recorded live on YouTube. So you can just do that at semrush.com/webinars. I've got Four Seasons Lodge talking about the maps feature, whether it's going to become a paid thing. If it's turning paid, I need to focus on other keywords. So they've got a concern, I guess, that the traffic that they may be getting from maps may dry up at some point in the future. So perhaps that's a topic for one of our panelists to have an opinion of at some point in the future. We've got loads of people from all over the world watching. We've got Jamie Combs from Vermont. We've got Plamen from Bulgaria. We've got Vishu from India. We've got William Rock from Kansas City. David Sace, hi David, from London. We've got Joe from Dublin, colouring department from London. Thank you so much all for chatting, and your opinion, of course, would be valued if you want to share it in the chat there. Just staying on Wikipedia pages for one more second here. Andy, do you think that Google may move to another source of data for its knowledge panels in the future, or is it still likely to be heavily reliant on Wikipedia?
If they're going to do something, they should probably do it sooner rather than later, because to put all your eggs in one basket like this is always a dangerous game, and especially with all of the problems that you've got with sort of the reliance on sort of the press online these days. A lot of it's faked. what's real, what's not real. If Google's just using that as one of their primary sources, then it's going to cause problems, and at some point something's going to cause a backlash. I know Facebook and Google are trying to do the best with this, but I would like to see something else that they'd take into account for the knowledge panels as well. But at the moment, I don't really know that there's anything that would do as good a job, or anything that they could really use.
That was going to be my next question. Is there something else? Can you name something that is likely to be considered by Google to replace it, or at least augment it? But I guess the challenge is that there's one Wikipedia and there's no such similar service out there.
Yes, exactly.
Well, let's go over to AJ for story number 2, and that is Bing ads are going to allow advertisers to target LinkedIn audiences. So, AJ, what's this all about, and how significant is it?
Well, this is really exciting because I think if you're anything like me, back in 2016, when you heard that Microsoft was purchasing LinkedIn, you went, wait, why? And me as an advertiser, I was, of course, saying, well, great. I mean, and we've watched what has happened with the Bing ads team. Essentially taking a platform from zero to catching up to the world's most advanced platform, which is Google AdWords, with near feature parity in just a few short years. And I definitely want to give them credit. That was a big deal for them to do. And so I'm looking at the LinkedIn ads platform, which has been traditionally very behind on technology and features. And then I see, oh, wow, Bing ads might be able to lend their team and come in here and make some really quick improvements. So that got me really excited. Basically, what we're seeing now is that Microsoft is going to be planning on sharing keyword data with LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is going to be sharing audience data back to Bing. And what we're seeing here is the first release where Bing is making use of this data. So I hope it's not going to be a straight like RLSA type of relationship where you're bidding only on people who are searching keywords, because Bing tends to have a pretty small search volume, and it'd be pretty easy to max that out. But if we can use full display of being able to say, you are this type of company, you're this type of professional, I think it's going to be extremely powerful, especially because the Bing clicks are going to be so much cheaper than LinkedIn's. Right now, we're paying about $6 to $9 per click on LinkedIn, and if you could target the same audiences somehow for $1 per click, I see there being a lot of opportunity.
Right. Okay. So that was going to be one of my follow-up questions. Obviously, we know that this is going to be implemented towards the end of this year, and it would be nice to have that interface, that's that common interface that people can use just to manage campaigns to both areas. And it's an interesting feature that Bing will be able to offer that doesn't, of course, exist or won't exist on the Google AdWords platform. So it could be something unique and a bit of a USP for them there as well. Linked ads are notoriously expensive. Why do you think it would make sense for their cost to decrease just because you could manage their creation within Bing?
Well, it's because the inventory on LinkedIn is expensive. They set bid floors right at the very beginning, so they've always been expensive, but then advertisers are clamoring for this inventory on a platform where the people don't come and spend a ton of time like on Facebook. On Facebook, they're coming and checking in 18 times a day, and LinkedIn, you might open it once or twice a week if you're a fairly active user, just to kind of keep the lights on and make sure things are going. So that makes the inventory much more expensive. Whereas Bing Ads has their display network that I'm under the impression is pretty new. And display networks are great because they go all the way around the web. So that creates a lot more inventory for a lot more people. And if you can tap into LinkedIn's targeting off of LinkedIn, where the inventory is more expensive, you should be able to access the same targeting, the same people, just while they're around the web for what comes across as a pretty big discount.
William Rock saying in the chat, Bing and LinkedIn clicks are going to be so rock star. So you had to watch AJ's reaction on the video, dear audio listener. It doesn't work in audio. But anyway, AJ, do you think that if prices do come down, then we'll see many more people using Bing as an advertising platform?
I sure think so. The big challenge right now with Bing is inventory. It's, I can go to Google and have infinite scale, or I can go to Bing and have my cost per lead chopped in half. But at some point tap that out and wish that I could expand. This is something that, like you mentioned, Google does not have access to. So this is Bing innovating, and B2B is getting to be a really big deal. Marketers are starting to understand that these big deal sizes mean big money, and it also means great news for your career to get involved. So I think more people are going to be shifting over. And plus, in B2B, we need more channels. We have LinkedIn, but like, people don't spend nearly as much time on LinkedIn. If we can reach B2B users outside, especially because Facebook took away our job title targeting and our company name targeting, any other channel that we can expand into is a really good thing.
Superb, yeah. And we were chatting briefly before we went live, and you were saying that LinkedIn introduced video advertising about 6 weeks ago, or 6 weeks ago or so, but it's quite expensive at the moment. How do you see that proposition evolving?
I mean, as with anything in digital marketing, when it very first comes out, it's going to be the cheapest it will ever be. And so with LinkedIn launching somewhere around the 6 to 14 cents per 3 second view, if you're a Facebook advertiser, you know that if you're paying between 1 to 2 seconds per 3 second, 1 to 2 cents per 3 second view, then you're right there along average. So we're talking about it starting orders of magnitude more expensive than Facebook. And I definitely wish that they would have started it out with a lower floor, just because I do see video advertising being so incredibly efficient on both Facebook and YouTube. So I do wish that we could take advantage of that with LinkedIn, but it starts pretty expensive, which means a lot of people have already been priced out, and it's just the beginning.
I'd love to see LinkedIn really fully embrace video and embrace live video as well, and allow publication of longer videos. And hopefully that's coming in the future. Do you have any insight on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, right now we can post videos that are up to 10 minutes. I don't see that necessarily getting too much longer, but I definitely see live video coming in the future. And it just reasons to me that if you're going to allow live video, it means these are going to be much larger file sizes. It'd be pretty easy to say, hey, for the videos that people are posting, they can now be longer than 10 minutes.
Great. Okay, one to definitely wait for. So let's go back to Andy for story number 3, and that is Google releases Lighthouse version 3.0. So Andy, first of all, what is Google Lighthouse, and should all SEOs be using it?
Well, Google Lighthouse is it's actually a Chrome plugin that helps you audit your website. What helps you audit your website live, effectively. So you hit the audit button, and it will create a very nice little audit right in front of you. And one of the major changes I like between version 2 and version 3, because it's been around a little while, is that they've actually updated the audit engine to something called Lantern, which means that where beforehand you were waiting 30, 40 seconds for an audit, so even a little bit longer to complete, it's now done in probably a quarter of the time, something like that. And along with that, some additional metrics, which mean a lot more to UX and building a mobile responsive website. So it's definitely something that every SEO should have installed. Doesn't cost you a penny. Just download the plugin, get it onto the Chrome browser, choose your options, and then see what issues it throws up. And you'd be surprised with all these things. I mean, obviously, it's only a page-by-page thing. It doesn't go away and crawl the whole website. But if you're on your homepage and you want to see what's holding it back, then it's a fantastic little addition, I would say. And it does give you some very, very actionable points across speed, across SEO, across accessibility as well, and tells you what they mean and how to fix them.
Okay, great. So to get going with this tool, you simply download it, audit your site to begin with, and then kind of once you do that, what are some of the most important metrics to be checking out?
So, well, it depends what you're trying to find yourself as well, because one of the big ones that's coming out and about at the moment is obviously speed, and with mobile first now being a thing that Google is sort of transferring people over to, it's going to be important to know what's holding your website up. And they actually use and recommend you use for testing speed as well, the web page test website. So it basically measures along the same sort of lines with that as well. But something else you have as well is you've got your time to paint as well. And these are important because it tells you at what point the first meaningful content is being seen, and then it tells you as well what time how long it is that it's taken before the first images are being seen, or maybe it's even just it's like a background color change or something like that. So it's really getting down to the brass tacks of what's going on with your website to try and sort of nail down any sort of stumbling blocks, any issues that might be sort of holding the site up.
Okay, I can really see that being very important, certainly from a mobile perspective. If people don't get content within the first couple of seconds, people are going to be pressing the back button and going on to somewhere else. Do you have any stats on how long is the optimum time, or when the cutoff period is, when people are likely to press back and just not to consider staying on the web page any longer?
It's apparently about 5 seconds at the moment. But that's considered too long. Apparently for every 10 seconds, for every second extra that somebody has to wait on a website for something to load, there's an 11% chance for them to actually back out of it and go and find something a little bit better. So for every second that you can actually save with that, I mean, you can effectively halve your traffic loss if you've got a site that takes sort of 5 seconds to load up. And the beauty about this is that although it's run from your desktop, because of the way that Google do it, they actually sort of use a part of the algorithm to almost throttle and guess how long it's going to actually take to load on a mobile. So you can choose, you can do a desktop or a mobile audit if you want to. But for the most part, I can see people using this just purely for mobile because of what it can actually do for you.
So I'm sure there are some SEO consultants watching this, or SEOs and enterprises that need to make a business plan or a case for SEO work to be done to the website to improve the speed of the website. And if they hear that stat, well, every second that it takes for content to load, people are 11% of people will leave. That is quite an incredible stat that people can tie back to commercial value. But what is the source of that stat?
That was actually on one of the little screens that pops up while the audit's running. So Google have actually sort of said, here you go, here's something. I mean, there's all sorts of little snippets of information that pop up there, and that was just one that I saw while I was looking. So you'll see all kinds of things pop up. There's always metrics. So effectively, the quicker your site, the more chance you've got of keeping people on there. I've heard similar sort of numbers banded about. I've even heard higher numbers banded about as well. I mean, at the point where a site takes about 8 seconds to load, you're going to lose up to 80% of your traffic. So there's many benefits and there's many reasons to make sure that you get your content onto that page and seen as soon as possible. Even if you've got to spend a little bit of time or a little bit of money, get somebody in there who's going to actually make the changes. You've got a WordPress site, you can get WordPress themes that are very fast. You can actually make changes to files, HTXS files. There's plugins you can use. Try everything that's going to help sort of speed the site up a little bit, but do take a look at sort of best practice things that you will actually see on this.
Now, the final stories, I say stories, there's 2 quick stories here, go to AJ. So the first one is, while Google has axed political ads in Washington state, LinkedIn axes them globally. So AJ, how significant is it that LinkedIn has axed political ads?
Personally, I don't think it's all that significant. I mean, LinkedIn ads are pretty expensive anyway, and so I can't imagine using them for political purposes. I mean, unless
are LinkedIn doing this for political purposes then?
Oh, of course they are. Yeah, this is essentially, don't be on the news like Facebook. Get out of the news. Don't get interviewed by really uninformed U.S. senators. It's just, I think it's something they're doing to protect themselves, just so they don't ever have to go to court.
So why hasn't Google done the same for around the world? Google are just focusing on Washington state, I believe, for this.
I'm not quite sure. It feels like Google is still a really good channel for advertising politically. So is Facebook. Like, just because of the nature of the platforms, they're really a good place, and there are really good political races going on that. I think there needs to be a channel. There needs to be a way to reach people, to sway public opinion. They're trying to guard against it being used for nefarious purposes and swaying elections and bad foreign actors. So honestly, I think they're still great channels. I think everyone should be able to use all of them for political purposes. They're just, rather than saying we're going to take a chance at trying to stop bad actors, bad foreign powers, they're just saying we don't want to try to do that. Let's just stop it all entirely.
So LinkedIn have done this to a few categories of advertising so far. Just as a brief summary, what are those categories, and are there any other categories of advertising that could be at risk from getting banned on LinkedIn, do you think?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of categories that are at risk, because when LinkedIn rolls these out, they do it very quietly, and there isn't really an appeal process. Currently you can't advertise alcohol, you can't advertise gambling in any format. They recently got rid of anything related to blockchain, and then of course, now we're seeing that that it's political ads. So LinkedIn can do this at any time. They're not quite in the limelight like the other platforms. So I think anything that comes up that is potentially polarizing, that LinkedIn has the capability of just saying, hey, look, we don't want to have any issues here. We don't want to be in the news for anything bad. Let's just preemptively cut it.
And a wise detective once said, just one more thing. So in his in his typical way, we'll just have one more story here, and that is AG spotted a story actually in Adweek saying that LinkedIn is now accepting carousel ads. So what are these, AJ, and is this going to be a conversion rate enhancer?
So many of you may be familiar with carousel ads after seeing them in Facebook. It's essentially in one ad, you have the ability to scroll over and see additional things. So if you're offering someone a pair of red shoes, but you don't know for sure if they like red shoes, maybe you can have a scroll over and see blue shoes and green shoes and army boots. So this is a way of kind of showing people additional options in a single ad unit and kind of letting them choose and filter for themselves. When I originally saw this on Facebook, I just assumed they weren't going to perform well because from a conversion optimization standpoint, we all know that when you have a carousel on your homepage, you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot with conversion rate. But we tested them really early on with Facebook and they performed really well. And I think what LinkedIn does really well is look to Facebook, see which features work really well and are well liked, and then start adopting them. And that's what we saw this morning. They officially released them. They've been in beta now for I think a couple months, and now the public gets access to them.
And I presume that LinkedIn aren't charging for interaction with the carousel. They're just charging for clicking on the call to action button underneath the carousel.
I'm pretty sure interaction with the carousel is a charged event. The only things that are not charged events with LinkedIn ads in the ad unit that they call sponsored content is if someone clicks like, comment, or share. Those social actions aren't charged. Every other interaction with the ad is. And I know you mentioned, you were asking about if this is going to be a conversion rate enhancer. I don't think it's going to be a conversion rate enhancer, but I do think it's going to be a click-through rate enhancer. So we're going to get these ads that are more easily engaged, and so people are going to want to engage with them, want to see more. It looks new, so they're going to want to play with it. And as they do, it's going to raise the overall engagement of that ad, bringing the cost down for the advertiser. But once they get to the landing page, I think the conversion rate is going to be pretty static.
So it's going to be an interaction enhancer, and it's the kind of thing that people are more likely to remember, maybe towards the beginning of the buyer journey, and then perhaps come back and search for that brand afterwards.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, that just about takes us to the end of the 9th episode. So just time for an actionable tip from each of our guests. So related to, or not necessarily related to, what we've been discussing so far. So let's go back to Andy for the first one. Andy, what is your actionable tip?
I would say, unrelated to what we've been talking about, get your internal links on your website sorted out. Get your site structure in some sort of semblance that is going to make sense to Google. If you've got search snippets in the SERPs, then you can help impact those as well. If you've got the wrong ones in there, you can help get the right ones as well. So it does help.
Superb. Thanks, Andy. And you can find Andy over at iqseo.org. And over to AJ. AJ, what is your actionable tip?
Okay, so for all sorts of social advertisers, we have to understand that this isn't search. People aren't actually looking to do business with us. And so don't put ads up that are just essentially click here and learn about my product and talk to my high pressure sales rep. Instead, we have to reach out to people, especially in B2B, with useful content. So don't think you can approach the social ad platforms and just put up an ad. Definitely take it from the perspective of, let's put together a useful piece of content. Go ahead and make it gated. You're going to get something out of this, but approach someone with something that is helpful and useful, solves a pain point or satisfies a curiosity, and then use that to start a relationship and a conversation. We need to get to the sales pitch a lot later.
Superb. Thank you, AJ. And you can find AJ over at B2Linked.com. There's a lot of chat going on YouTube. Jamie Coombs is saying, while I was visiting a mobile workshop at Google in New York City, they said that most users on mobile are still on a 3G connections, not 4G or Wi-Fi. And I think that's a great point, because it's easy to assume that people who are consuming your website are on fast connections, just like yourself if you're testing your website. But you really do need to test for the lowest possible denominator. And I think that's a great point to finish on. We could keep the discussion going. I'm sure hopefully we'll do on YouTube. And hopefully you enjoyed this episode if you're listening to it in audio podcast format afterwards. I've been your host, David Bain. You can also find me over at digitalmarketingradio.com. We will be recording the next episode 10 of Search Marketing Scoop at the same time, same place, the SEMrush YouTube channel, on Wednesday, the 27th of June. So that's in 2 weeks' time, where my guests are scheduled to be PPC optimizer Joe Bondarowski and SEO expert Pam from Pam and Marketing. In the meantime, thanks not only to Andy and AJ for this episode, but also to you for tuning in. If you like what you heard, subscribe to the audio podcast. So you can do that. Find that if you just head over to searchmarketingscoop.com and find the link there to your preferred Apple or Android flavor of podcatcher. But until next time, be fantabulous and do one thing that scares you. Adios.